On today's show, Media Day has come and gone, and we are now in training camp mode for the Atlanta Hawks. We'll touch on all of what is transpiring, a little bit of buzz around the team, some audio, and much more, and all of that is on the way.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1810 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday here in early October. And today's podcast is sponsored by the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to tell you at the top of the podcast, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you might find your podcasts. That includes Spotify and Apple, as well as YouTube on the video side. Please go ahead and like this episode as you are watching it on YouTube, and please subscribe. And crucially, tell your friends that are Hawks fans or Hawks interested people about the podcast. Today's show, we'll be diving into your mailbag questions. We are in the middle of training camp. The Hawks have now practiced for the last 2 days. Not a ton of overarching news, I would say, at the top, just because honestly, it's a good thing for the most part. Like, you don't want big news in the first couple of days of training camp. That means like clean injuries, all that stuff. And we're not able to watch a ton of practice. So it's all full speed ahead for sure. Like, we're into the season now. The Hawks will play a game, though, until Tuesday, and even then it's preseason. So it's kind of that holding pattern time between Media Day and the first time that the public actually gets to see the Hawks play some basketball. But, and I would say later on in the podcast, by popular demand, I was going to say I've gotten this question and people are interested in this several different times now. So I'm actually going to share Dyson Daniels' Media Day availability at the end of the pod. It has clean audio. And a bunch of different fans, people kind of just asked about me about that. It is already on YouTube in a standalone fashion, but for people listening on the audio side, as I am an audio-only usual listener to podcasts that I am subscribed to. So that's going to be at the end of the podcast as the final segment of the show today, because Dyson was really, really interesting, and he even gave more comments today. So I won't share those. I was not in Athens today, but even then, like, I'm sure you'll see some audio and video on social media from Jackson Caudill and also from Lauren Williams, et cetera, et cetera. But Dyson's been really introspective, and I think because he's a new player and Hawks fans, I should say, have not heard from him to this point. I got questions about that, so I am attaching that video to the end of this podcast. In between there, though, your mailbag questions, and I did get some questions that actually are kind of newsy this week that I could partially answer with some audio from Quinn Snyder today, after the morning practice on Wednesday. So question one that I can answer is that some people have been curious about veteran leadership on the Hawks roster this year. If you've already sifted through all of the audio from Media Day, both Quinn and Landry were asked about veterans and leadership and all that stuff at Media Day. But with two of the old guys, in fact, the two oldest players on the team last year, leaving in Wes Matthews and Patty Mills, it's been a topic of conversation. And today, actually, on Wednesday, you will hear a question that I'm about to play for you from my pal Kevin Chenard of ATL and 29 and Hawks.com. And here's what Quinn had to say about leadership.
So last year you had Wes Matthews, and you could see and hear him being a leader on the floor. Where do you expect to get that sort of thing this season?
Well, we have to get it from everybody. I think, there's a commitment to communication that's important. And when you have someone, like Larry Nance, for example, it's just naturally been a part of teams that communicate. And it's more than kind of idle chatter. There's a purposeful, intentional communication. And sometimes guys that, if they haven't played on another NBA team, they don't know exactly what that looks like all the time. And the other part of it is knowing what to say. That, like I said, for it to be intentional, whether it be calling out a pick-and-roll coverage or something as simple as I'm open, which encourages people to pass the ball and encourages you to clarify that you got a shot. So there's so many different ways that teams can talk. And there's some guys that are naturally more introverted or extroverted than others, and you guys can pull each other along, and you get to a point where that communication is collective.
As you hear there, Quinn references Larry Nance Jr. specifically in that answer. That is not a huge surprise to me after what I've heard about Larry Nance. I know when the Hawks acquired him, I kind of said this, but I did some calls over the summer, and just people that have covered Larry Nance in LA, in Cleveland, in New Orleans, etc. He has a fantastic rep around the league, basically, as just a model citizen kind of guy. good leader, good vocal guy. He's been around for a long time. He talked about, Larry did at Media Day, about how he and Clint Capella are the two guys on the team that have a decade plus of NBA experience. He seems pretty open to kind of doing whatever the Hawks need him to do, both on the court and as that leader. I think he's comfortable in that role. I shared this on social media, but he was actually just among the media, like listening to a couple of the press conferences, just taking it all in. Like, he was the only player that did that. So all that kind of stuff, like, you can overstate it. I think that oftentimes it gets overstated at the professional sports level, leadership and vocal stuff, because these guys are all pros. At the same time, you do want some guys that are rock solid, who've been there before, who've seen some things that can kind of pass along. I think Nance checks that box, and you kind of hear that from Quinn in that answer. But anyway, a pretty revealing answer, I thought. But I also wanted to quickly answer one more question that's related to this. I think it came after someone listened to ATL in 29, which I referenced earlier from Kevin Chouinard. But they did an episode in the last couple of days after Media Day and talked about the old guys a little bit on that show. And the question was basically if the Hawks even have old guys now. I'm guilty of this too. I kind of have referred to Capella and Bogey as the old guys at times in recent vintage, even though they're not that old. They've just been the older veterans on this Hawks team that's still pretty young overall. But at present, they have 4 guys on the roster that are 30 years old or older. One of those, though, is Cody Zeller, who might not be around long. We'll touch on that in a second, actually, on the podcast. The other 3 are Bogey, who's the oldest guy on the team at 32 years old. Then Nance is 31, and Capella is 30. Bogey is not in the decade plus in the league club that Nance and Capella are in, but he's been a pro for even longer than that, dating back to his time in Europe. I think these 3 guys are going to be kind of the leaders by default as far as like older guys. They're all fairly vocal to varying degrees. Bogey and Clint have been the most candid with the media in particular the last couple of years. Nance has that reputation as well. I think the other guy, of course, to mention is Trae Young, who I think has always had some leadership burden because he's the best player on the team, focal point of the team, etc. And he talked pretty openly at Media Day about planning to be pretty vocal this season. He always admits he's not the most like natural vocal leader, but I think he's gotten a lot more mature in that kind of role and can do that more and more. So he's not going to be like confused with like this great, all-time leadership figure as a vocal guy. But I think they have enough to be sure. Like there's no Vince Carter, there's no Wes Matthews, like no 40-year-old sage veteran on this team. But they have a bunch of guys who've been around for a long time. They have a lot of coaches. They have a lot of guys who I think are good character guys. So I'm not concerned, nor are the Hawks, with regard to that particular topic. Question from Floyd now, as we dive into more of the mailbag questions. I was somewhat surprised to hear ATL in 29 talking about the rotation earlier this summer and not including Kobe Bufkin. Is there a chance that he's not playing to begin the season? So I'm going to wait and do a more full-blown rotation deep dive a little bit later in the process because I'd like to have some more intel about this, like what the Hawks are thinking, and see some preseason games and some more practice stuff, etc. But to answer this, I think there is a chance. The question is there a chance? I would say yes. There is a chance that Kobe is not in the rotation on opening night. A chance. Now, it's come up a lot in my player capsule episodes with Glenn Willis over the summer, which I should also plug on the podcast. I know there are probably some new or returning listeners now who don't pay attention all summer long. That's totally fine. I get it. But Glenn and I have been talking about the entire roster to this point. We've done the whole team other than Jalen Johnson, which is still to come. But there's been a dedicated conversation in this same podcast on each and every player that includes Kobe up and down the roster that you can go back and listen to now. That's kind of the point of those doing those in the summer is that they're still listenable even now. Like not a whole lot has changed on most of those. So they're all still searchable and listenable either on YouTube or in the audio feeds. With that said, on the question, I've been intentional about pointing out that there are not that many like total safe locks about like what things are going to be like this year. This is a pretty fluid situation. It's a season in which the Hawks are trying to win, but they're not like pushing all their chips in. So that kind of adds some intrigue. There are new pieces, post-Murray trade, all that stuff. Obviously, we know Trae and Jalen are going to play a lot and be locks to start, etc. We know that Clint and Onyeka are going to be center minutes. If they're on the team, they're going to play. We know that. Obviously, we know Bogey's going to play a lot. Whether he starts or not, who knows? He's going to play a lot, obviously. I think it's probably safe to say that Dyson Daniels and DeAndre Hunter are going to play. Daniels for his defense, Hunter because he's making a lot of money. He's obviously maligned locally, but he's obviously a rotation level player. Then you have, I think Risache is going to play. Now, will he play every single game this season? I would not guarantee that, but he's going to play. He's number 1 overall pick. They're going to invest in him as they should. He's going to play. There is a world, though, in which they give the non-Trae Young minutes to some combination of Dyson Daniels and maybe Vit Krejci next to Bogey in the backcourt rather than going with Kobe to begin the season. I asked Quinn and shared this on the Monday episode post-Media Day. Quinn gave kind of a rambling answer about the non-Trey minutes, which, by the way, he gave a similar answer on Tuesday, which I won't play for you, but after practice, Kevin asked about that. And it was kind of, he's not giving specifics. That's Quinn to a T. But long story short, it is not a lock. And I've always said that Kobe is the backup point guard coming into the season. If I had to guess right now, before a game is played, before anything is revealed to the public, I would guess Kobe is going to play in the opener as a backup point guard type of figure. But even then, that is not a confident estimate from me. So there is a chance for sure that he doesn't play. I think at some point this season, as long as he's healthy, at some point he's going to play some backup point guard minutes. That's logical to me. But I'm not going to tell you that I actually know that's going to happen. So it's at least reasonable to discuss it as an option to not do that, because they do have, in particular, Dyson that can be that backup point guard role, like not in an on-ball way like Trey is, but if you pair Dyson with Bogey and maybe with Jalen too, like to have some extra ball handling, like that's doable, especially on defense. Now on Kobe, quickly, I won't really get the entire player capsule, which is still again in the feed, but he is a totally unproven offensive initiator at the NBA level right now. I like Kobe. I think Kobe's got a very bright future in the NBA, but we haven't seen it at the NBA level yet. The defense was actually quite impressive, I thought, in short samples last year in the NBA once he got up. But offensively, he wasn't asked to do a lot, and he wasn't quite ready to do that. So we'll see what that looks like now. The Hawks know that more than we do. He kind of had this weird summer with the injury, but he's full go now by all accounts. So we'll see how camp goes for him. And they may not have him in that backup point guard role, but we should certainly learn some more about that in the next couple of weeks, both between game action and practice and quotes and all that stuff. So stay tuned. But to answer the question one more time, there is a chance for sure that Kobe's not playing opening night, but we will find out more in the near future. All right, more to come on today's podcast. But first, a word from our partners on the show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football is here in a big way. If you're an NFL fan, start the season right with a big return at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. If you happen to have a hunch in the middle of a game, check out a ton of different information sets from a live stats and play-by-play to the latest overarching stuff and much more on the same page when you are placing your bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. You also get started with a great offer from FanDuel, and that is $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. You should also know the FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use as well. They have everything that you're looking for in the sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads to live betting. They have money lines and player props, same-game parlays, future bets, and much more. The app is safe and secure at FanDuel. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA, as you might expect. Listen to this podcast. WNBA is there, NFL, college football, baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. One more time, visit FanDuel.com and check out America's #1 sportsbook. All right, a question from Anthony, who says, what will the Hawks do with Cody Zeller's spot if they do a buyout like you said they might? So if you missed it from Media Day on Monday, #1 to that episode, I shared a lot of bonus audio on YouTube and in the audio feeds as well, but my own, like, more, pared down thoughts in a single episode with me talking was posted Monday night into Tuesday. And I actually asked Landry Fields about how they plan to approach the Cody Zeller situation. I played that answer on the show. Fields made some news with that comment saying that the Hawks are talking to his camp, all those things. And as of Wednesday night, as I'm recording this podcast, nothing's happened so far on that front. But I am still generally expecting, not locked in, but I'm expecting / projecting Zeller won't be on the team on opening night based on the answer and what I've heard behind the scenes. And he wasn't at media day, all that stuff. So again, at this stage, I'm not flat out reporting anything about what's going to happen there or how they're going to handle the roster spot. But the question assumes that Zeller will be gone. I'm not assuming that yet. I think it's likely. But to answer the question about what might happen, there are some considerations. So for one thing, somebody asked me actually yesterday about Zeller's salary and how that might impact things. Zeller has $3.5 million guaranteed on his deal right now for the Hawks this year. It's year one of a 3-year contract, but everything after this year is non-guaranteed. So it's functionally a 1-year deal that made the money work in the Murray trade. I won't really get all that stuff. He's very clearly a league minimum kind of player. He's making a little bit more than that, even at the veteran minimum, because they had to do that to make the money work and make the CBA changes, all those things. So even if they buy out Cody Zeller, his salary is going to count against the cap. It doesn't just go away. So like in some sports, it's still going to be there. So the only clarification there is that if he accepts less than what he is owed, the difference between what he is owed and what he accepts will come off the cap. But it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a ton of money. If I'm Cody Zeller and I might be out of the league after this, I'm not going to personally take a huge haircut to be bought out. We'll see if he does, TBD. So that's a negotiation point. That's what, when Landry says they're talking to his camp, I read that as they're negotiating a buyout, which means Cody might be like, hey, or his agent might be like, we want all the money. And by the way, that's the appropriate tact. He is owed that money. It is guaranteed. It's a guaranteed contract. He does not have to give the Hawks a break on that. But this matters in some ways because the Hawks are only about 1.3 or so million under the tax line right now, and they do not intend to go over that line. I've reported that all summer long. That still stands. Now, if there's a home run move in January or February, or if they had gotten Tyus Jones on a bargain, maybe they would have done it. But at the moment, like, they're pretty locked into being under the tax, and they don't want to go over the tax, I would say. So they'll be watching their pennies on all this stuff and whatever combination of moves that happens. That's a factor whether you want it to be or not, it is. On the basketball side, they basically have three options if they move on from Zeller. Number one is they could just sign someone to replace him on the roster on a full NBA contract. That could be someone that's not under contract somewhere else, like a Markelle Fultz or a Dennis Smith. Those are the most famous guys who are free agents, whatever. I wouldn't expect that, but it's possible. They could even sign Kevon Harris or Daquan Plowden, who are on camp deals, to full contracts. That could possibly happen, especially if it's a non-guaranteed deal, something like that. Another option is they could take one of the two-way players and either unilaterally convert them to a one-year deal or negotiate a multi-year deal with one of the two-way guys. And just as a refresher, those are Dom Barlow, Seth Lundy, or Keaton Wallace. I would guess Barlow is the most likely candidate there. He's the most proven of those three guys. But if they did that and move one of those guys to a full contract, they'd have a two-way open. They could use that two-way on Plowden or Harris or somebody else or Jurisic. There's some flexibility there. And I talked about Jurisic on the most recent show. He has reportedly, at least according to his agent, announcing it on Instagram, signed with some deal with College Park. That has not been announced. So TBD on all of that. And the last thing is they could just leave the spot open. Either Zeller spot or a two-way slot for flexibility's sake. If they want to make a trade, save some money for a while, et cetera. Like the Hawks went into 2 years ago, they went into the season with a roster spot that was open, which became a controversy because I actually asked Landry about it. I think the only time he acknowledged that the Hawks were doing that for money reasons, basically, 2 years ago. So yeah, there's possibilities there. I'm not expecting some big splash. I know people were asking about Markelle Fultz. Like, I'm not saying that they won't do that or couldn't do that. I haven't heard a thing about that. If it's going to happen, maybe it would. But anyway, he's the big name free agent that's still available. But I think for me, Zeller being bought out is not to do something huge. It's more procedural. And also, if they do that, they just kind of don't need him. There isn't a huge role for him. And I think he's like a fringe NBA player. It's not like he's a disaster on that contract or anything like that. But they like Don Barlow. They like Mo Gay, who isn't a center necessarily, but Mo Gay can play some 4-5 for you. Same with Barlow. They have Larry Nance. So they have three centers on the roster already, plus Barlow, plus Gay. That's enough as far as like going into the season if they want to do that. But TBD on all of that. Last thing is on this topic, I got a question from Zach with a K, shouts to Zach, about why the Hawks are not able to get an asset, or why they weren't able to get an asset in the Zeller deal originally. I am not privy to all the negotiations there, but it was not that big of a surprise. It's something like Zeller or Matt Ryan, for example, was the salary coming back in the Murray trade. If you want to learn more about this, I talked about it at length back in July. I'm not going to do the whole thing again, but I understood that people didn't like that they just took Cody Zeller. The way that it was reported out, it was more of a surprise because it felt like to some fans that it was just like, oh, the Hawks are just taking Cody Zeller for no reason, not getting anything back. I get that was not great. The Hawks maybe could have held out for another asset in that transaction, but it was all kind of worked on together. And my question at the time, and my question still is, they could have done that move a little bit earlier before the league year. They didn't do that. They could have done Jonas Valanciunas. There were other options, but usually, not always, usually there is a real reason that we don't know as to why things didn't happen the way they did. But in the end, they didn't get anything for Zeller. And the only reason Zeller is on the team, I feel comfortable saying this now, I was pretty much leaning this way anyway, but now even more comfortable, is that they just had to have someone to make the money work. I know that's frustrating for people that don't want to have a guy like that on the team. I get it, but they had to do it with somebody, and he was the guy that got the extra boost of cash to take that salary, all that stuff. So also, one more thing. they were never going to get like anything huge to take on Cody Zeller. Like it's $3.5 million. Like they proactively wanted to do the trade. The Hawks wanted to do the Murray trade with the Pelicans. That was obvious. They wanted to do that trade. They're not just like being a facilitator. Like if this had been a 3-team deal and like another team, like for instance, the recent Karl-Anthony Towns, Julius Randle deal, the Hornets came in as purely a facilitator and got a few seconds to make it work. But they didn't have to participate. They were doing both teams a favor jumping in. The Hawks were not. It was a 2-team trade, all that stuff. So I'll be done rambling now. But that is it for Cody Zeller. And again, I'm recording this podcast on Wednesday evening. It wouldn't stun me if by Thursday it was done. It wouldn't stun me if they rolled it around for a while. Nothing's imminent that I'm aware of, but that's where we are right now. At the moment, it's all unofficial. I'm all just reading between the lines, but listen to Landry's answer from Monday, and you will probably agree with what I'm saying. Okay, one more break. To hear from persons on today's podcast, we'll be right back with more on the show. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best place to find tickets. There's nothing like checking out a live event, whether it is sports or music or comedy or theater. They also have a new feature at Gametime called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets even easier for you. They take away all the stuff through a filter that you actually don't need and show you the incredible deals on great seats that you do need. So there's no wasting time searching through thousands of different tickets. For example, there are awesome deals all the time, and especially for the Hawks season opener on October 23rd at home against Brooklyn, including a pair of tickets right now for $27 each, including fees at Gametime. That's an awesome deal, of course. There's more of that happening all the time at Gametime. Plus, my personal favorite feature at Gametime is the checking out the seats, and through the all-in pricing, there are no surprise fees at the checkout screen at the end. Also get a view from your seats in the app that's panoramic before you buy them, so you know exactly what you're getting into when you get to that venue that you are looking to buy from, and you're getting the lowest possible price guaranteed with the folks at Gametime. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account with Gametime. Redeem that promo code. It is LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, and before we sign off on today's show, I teased it at the beginning of the podcast. I'm going to play for you on either YouTube or the audio platform the entirety of about 10 minutes of Dyson Daniels speaking to the media at Media Day. This is not a post-practice. This is actually at Media Day from Monday, but I thought it was interesting. I referenced it on the show on Monday, and people were like, we want to hear it. Okay, here it is. So I thought Dyson was introspective. The questions are not always the most audible, but his answers are very clear on the audio that I have and the video that I have. So it's number one. I wouldn't play this, like for most guys, I'm not going to add this onto a podcast, but because it's basically his intro press conference, it wasn't billed that way, but he had not talked. And he's, of course, the biggest domino arriving in the Murray trade. People are excited about him. He has this cool accent, all these things about Dyson Daniels people were not really aware of. I had several people I saw on Twitter be like, oh, his accent exists? Like, yeah, people had not heard him speak. So here you go on Dyson. I thought it was really introspective and interesting. So the rest of this podcast will be Dyson Daniels talking at Media Day. It's not edited. This is just the way it sounds. I'll roll it from there, and then we'll sign off at the end of the podcast. So please stay tuned for the rest of this interview from Dyson Daniels. If nothing else, I'll have more content coming up later on this week. Please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you happen to find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, etc. We're also on YouTube. Please like the show and please subscribe on that platform. And the best you can possibly do is to A, support our sponsors, and B, download and subscribe on both an audio channel and a video channel. That'd be great if you can do that for us. Follow us on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks, and follow my non-podcast work at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, there we go. We'll sign off now. Here's Dyson Daniels and the rest of the podcast.
Hey, Dyson. Welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you.
What's your experience been like in just a short time getting to, play with some new teammates?
It's been great. This team here, it's got a really good feel to it. It's got, I can feel the chemistry building already. A few new guys coming in, so it's important that we stick together. Do off-court activities and stuff just to keep building that chemistry. The city's been great. Really embraced me. Found some good food spots, and I'm excited to be here.
You speak of that chemistry. What was it like going with Trey and Zach and being a part of a tournament where you can get some of that on-the-court experience playing with those guys?
Yeah, that was fun. Me and Zach went down to Oklahoma with Trey, and he had like a little community event out there, and we were able to, get on the floor and run with Trey and some other guys as well. So that was really special because, we just got to Atlanta, and to already have that set up for us was cool. And like I said, it's all about building that chemistry, gelling together, and I think that's going to help us, come game one of the season.
Hey, Dyson, so you're everywhere on the floor. As a multi-positional defender, what type of adjustments do you have to make to guard a smaller point guard versus guarding a forward?
Yeah, I think, everyone's different. You have smaller point guards who can shoot it. You have smaller point guards who are more get on the rim type people. And, you come in with a scout of every game, what you want to take away from someone. And, for me, I pride my game on my defense. And, I scout everyone, my matchup, who I'm going to be playing on before the game. I want to challenge the guard and the best player every night. But, like I said, every player is different. Some people, you want to take away their right hand. Some people, you want to take away their step back going right. And some people, you want to keep out of the paint. So, that's more of the guards, but forwards is about, sometimes they'll try to take you down to the post, so it's about finding, their hips, getting under them, making sure they can't back you down. Like I said, everyone's different. You kind of have to guard everyone a different way, so that's why I scout people before I play them.
How do you feel being able to play alongside guys like Bogey and Trey can maybe help you unlock some of your other tools offensively?
Yeah, these guys are super special, especially on the offensive end, and a guy like Trey who attracts so much attention. You can play off him. He's gonna, be finding me a kick out. I gotta make quick reads with the ball. Get downhill, shoot the ball, make plays for other people, and I think I'm gonna fit really nicely with this team and the style of play that we're gonna play. And a guy like Bogey who can shoot the lights out. He's gonna space the floor for everyone. So I'm excited to play with those two guys. But we got some really good players in the team, some athletes, some shooters. So I'm looking forward to hopefully playing a fast style of play. And it's gonna be fun this training camp.
What's up, Dyson? David Lee with the Afro. Welcome to the city. So I wanted to speak to you about your Olympic experience this summer. The previous year, you didn't get as much opportunity with the team, but as you've grown year by year, both offensively and defensively, you got a pretty big role this season. You were very confident offensively. You had that game winner during the friendlies as well. So I'm curious, what do you think has been your biggest growth, and what particular skill that's given your coaches on the national team the trust to keep you on the floor in the biggest moments? Yeah, I think going back and playing with the national team is always fun, and it's a great experience playing with the Boomers, and just playing with your country gives you such a sense of pride. And I think one thing that not changed, but that I really brought into this Olympic campaign was my mindset. And I know that my first 2 years in the NBA and my first year at the World Cup with Australia last year wasn't me and how I exactly planned it to be. And I know that I have so much more in me, so much more that I can do. And it's just about coming in with that mindset, being confident in myself, trusting my work that I put in. And I think that playing that Olympics and having a pretty good Olympic campaign really boosted me, going into the season. And I'm excited because, I got a lot to show this year.
Hey, Dyson. Welcome to Atlanta, by the way. But they said a couple other players shared how the off-season training activities, the one thing that they took away from that was just how fast that y'all were able to play. Yeah. When you're coming to a new team and learning a new system and trying to develop chemistry with that, how can you kind of balance that kind of learning and, catching up to something that fast, that fast pace of play, while also, being able to reinforce your strengths and lead the defense? Yeah, I mean, for me, I like playing fast. I think that's what it helps me with my game. And when you look at our roster, we got such athletic wings. We got Trey, obviously a really fast point guard, who's willing to throw the ball ahead. We got guys who can play above the rim. We got shooters. So if we play fast and when we keep the ball moving around, then we're going to be hard to stop. So I think that's what we have to do. Coming into this year, keep the ball off the floor. Try and move it forward with the pass. And then obviously, we got some guys at center like Clint. Mo, like these guys who can play above the rim as well, coming off pick and roll and stuff. So we have a very versatile group. Like I said, we got big wings. Jalen, he likes to play above the rim, but playing fast means that teams are, you got to get back in transition as well in defense. So we're going to have to work together with that. Make sure that I know they were a good offensive rebounding team last year, the Hawks were. So that's going to be important, but it's going to be important we have people back as well, because when you play fast, you get up the floor, it comes with, a little bit more turnovers and stuff like that. So, but for me,
I want to take the challenge of guarding the best player every night. Just being out there, being that, kind of that backbone for guys like Trey, being able to switch things, 1 through 4, defend bigger people, defend smaller guards. So just being everywhere on the floor. I got a big goal this year of making a first-team All-Defense. So I'm gonna try to go out there and make that happen.
Hey Dyson. So first, two-part question. What was your reaction to being traded? Obviously, I think you were with the national team when it happened, so I don't know how much you were able to process it when it happened. And then secondly, how has your time in New Orleans prepared you for potentially a new role and obviously the opportunity now being with the Hawks?
Yeah, I think, I got called at 6 a.m. and I was asleep. So, I was like, woke up out of my sleep and I was like, kind of groggy, picked up the phone, wasn't really expecting it. So I was kind of shocked, especially for the first day. But once, kind of everything settled down and, I was able to, come to myself and my thoughts, that I was excited. I knew, I wanted to be a part of a team like this, a team that plays fast, a team that has the opportunity to, be good. And, I was really excited. But, playing New Orleans, I learned a lot. I was kind of playing behind, like some all-star caliber players, some veterans as well, which I was able to learn from for my first 2 years. And, that was great for me. But I think, this trade has come at the right time, going into year 3, ready to make that big jump. And, that's what I'm ready for. So I'm really looking forward to this year.
Hi, Dyson. So coming to an offense predicated on a three-point shot, or at least that was last season, has that been a major area of development for you this summer? And how does your shooting performance from the Olympics give you confidence that you can be a positive contributor to that offense?
Yeah, my whole 3 years in the NBA has been a lot of shooting work and just finding what feels comfortable and what I want to stick with. And, I think my Olympic campaign, I shot the ball, pretty well. So I was very happy with that and want to carry that over into the NBA season this year. And, I've been working with Kyle a lot, and, one of the greatest shooters to, ever play this game. So I've been working with him. I've been getting some tips from him, and, I'm excited because, I've changed my shot a little bit, getting it off faster, keeping the ball high. So I'm looking forward to, getting a lot of open shots because, when you play with the elite passers like Trey, that you will get open shots for sure.
To kind of piggyback off that question, you mentioned, working with Kyle and changing your shot. What were some specific, tips or advice that he gave you or drills he had you do? And I guess in the mechanics, how did your shot change?
Yeah, so a lot of it was, in the legs and, getting my hips back. When I was catching a lot, my hips were dropping down, my knees were like kind of folding in, whereas this one's about getting my hips back. And, that also excels me to have a faster shot and keeping the ball high as well. Taking that big dip out of my shot, just getting it to my spot, getting it over my right toe, and then, get my elbow high. So these are the main focuses that we've been working on, and it already feels comfortable. I've been working with him for a few weeks now, but I'm starting to, get in the flow and the rhythm of things, and the shot feels really good. So it's just about repetition now.
And Dyson, you've gotten a chance to play with Larry Nance Jr. I'm curious, with him coming over to the Hawks, what is he going to add to this team that you've seen?
Yeah, I'm actually angry Larry's here because I'm kind of sick of him from New Orleans. But Larry's a great player. He's really smart. He's a big guy. He can play above the rim. He defends. He switches. He's really, he can pass the ball. So he's got a lot of versatility to his game. And we played a lot together last year. Come off the bench, playing with him. So I'm used to playing with a guy like him who can catch it in the pocket, make plays. So I'm excited to have Larry here for sure. Actually, I'm not excited, but yeah.
What's up, Dyson? One more question from me. Cool. So when I'm watching your film, of course, the defense pops, but the spatial awareness that you have on both ends of the court really stands out to me as well. And so that manifests where you're jumping passing lanes or something like that. But especially you have a very weird knack for back-tapping rebounds and somehow getting the offensive boards that way. Where did that skill come from? And also, just when did you start developing that?
Yeah, I think for me it's just about making winning plays, and I would consider myself a player that has a pretty good basketball IQ. I know, on offense when to cut, the spots I need to be in. I know on defense, where I have a good assumption of where the ball's going to go, what players like to do, their tendencies. So just being in the right spot. But like I said, the back tap is just, I've been an offensive rebounder my whole career, but when you come here and you're coming up against, bigger bodies, athletic guys, sometimes you can't grab it, you just got to tip it out. And, most of the time, you know, your team's going to be at the half-court line, or we're going to be on the backside. So if you get it out there, there's going to be someone there. So I'm usually in the corner a lot, so I'm crashing, you know, three-point shots and stuff. And whenever I can get my hands on the ball and tip it out, you know, I'm gonna do that. But I wouldn't say it's really come from anywhere. I think, you know, it's an easy thing to do. It's just about having the mindset of going to do it. So, thanks, guys. Thank you.